It's time for an update on my black and white glue book journal that isn't completely black and white yet, but it will be. And that's kind of what I've been working on. This was an 8.5 by 11 Moleskine journal that had off-white grid pages on the inside. And, you know, lovely blank journal, but I wanted to use it for my black and white journal, not my black and off-white. So I've gone through, I think I mentioned last time that I was thinking I might go through and just start covering some of the pages, and that's what I've done. I've just kind of gone through and glued down some of the papers that I pulled to use in it. Some are just, you know, decorative, like exotic papers. Boy, there we go. This is a shiny silver pattern on here, so it's glaring a little. And I just, I didn't do every single page, just kind of worked here and there throughout the book and glued them down, just covering most of the pages. I'll probably do all of them. I don't know if I'll do them all before I start working on it. But, you know, eventually they'll all be covered because I do want to cover the off-white. And some with paper, some with images. I think I pulled these out of a Flow magazine. And that one I'm going to glue down, and I'll show you how I glued these down. So that's all there is to it. I left a flap there so I could make a pocket or something if I wanted to. There's some blanks. I did do this front back alternating so that my spine wouldn't get too wonky, and it has stayed fairly straight, so that's good. And all that means is, you know, I glued a paper in the front part of the book, and then I glued a paper in the back part of the book, and then I glued a paper in the front part, and then I glued a paper in the back part. That's what I mean by front back, because that's what Dee Dee Willingham told me I should do to keep my spine from rolling, and she was right. It does work. A little sticky there on the edges, and that's okay. I used Yes Paste on these, and the reason I chose Yes Paste is because it dries pretty much completely flat, and that's what I wanted for these. You know, these may get really bumpy and textury, I don't know, but I at least wanted a flat surface to start with, and I knew Yes Paste would give me that. So that's why I chose it. And then the papers I chose are either black, white, or they have my allowed accent covers I've decided would be silver, gold, and red. And I just want little spots of those colors here and there, but it's going to be predominantly black and white, and I'll cover up whatever grossness that is. I don't know what happened there. That's where I had the pink was coming off, and here it just looks like dirt. So I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I'm using Yes Paste. You can use whatever the heck you want. But just for those of you who've not used Yes Paste, or you need a little reminder about it, I thought I would show you exactly how I glued these down and why I chose Yes Paste. So this is my container. My paste is old, so it has turned a little dark. It's normally several shades lighter than this, but this really doesn't matter because it's still working just fine. It hasn't lost any of its sticky. I usually scoop some out of my container. This is a big container. It comes in smaller ones, but you know. I take a blob and then I put it on something else. I don't like dipping out of the container because I end up getting it all over my hands and it's just messy. So that's mainly why I scoop it out. And plus I seem to waste less. Yeah. So I've scooped it out onto a piece of a craft mat that I've got on a clipboard. Sometimes I scoop it out on a piece of foil. You know, scoop it out on whatever. And I will leave it out for several days. And I usually, if I'm gonna leave it, I'll spray it with a little water and then, you know, cover it with a piece of plastic wrap or a piece of foil. I mean, I had some out here for over a week that stayed just fine. So yeah, it's naturally slow drying, so it isn't gonna just dry out overnight. It's supposed to be slow drying. So that's one advantage to it. Now, I'm gonna go, I picked a couple of pieces of background paper. Here's this one. It's white and silver. And I'm gonna glue it right here. And because I'm right-handed, I need to turn this around, and I need to set my cover in the glue, because that's what I do. I'm right-handed, so it's just easier for me to do everything off to the right like this. And that means I just went upside down, right? Okay, this doesn't really matter because this doesn't have an upside down or a right side up pattern, so it doesn't matter if I'm upside down. Now, I'm gonna take, I usually use an old credit card or gift card or something like that. And I load up my Yes paste. If it seems a little thick, you can, you know, add some water to thin it out. You don't want to thin it out too much or it'll lose some of its sticky. But I put, I don't know, this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet. This is probably a good tablespoon, heaping tablespoon of glue on my card. And then I apply it to my destination page. And I'm fussy about my edges. I just really want to make sure that my edges are glued down good. So everywhere there's going to be an edge of this, I go in and make sure I've got a good amount of paste on there. And I'll put a link down in my video description where you can get Yes glue. I mean, you can get it. I usually just grab mine off Amazon. You can get it just fine off Amazon. You can sometimes find it in your craft stores, in your Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Joann's. But you can for sure get it on Amazon. Then I just work smoothing the paste out to all these other edges. And you know, you can do this by tilting your card, because if you keep it straight up and scrape, it like removes the glue. But then if you tilt it, then it lays it down thicker. So I just kind of scrape it from the thick areas and then apply it to the areas that it needs. So extra thick there, so I kind of scrape it and then lay it down to apply it here. You can kind of feel it underneath the card, and you can tell when the card is sliding over the glue. If, you know, if it hits a naked spot, you can kind of feel it. And I just make sure all of my edges have a good amount of glue. Because if they're stuck down, I don't have to worry too much about the middle. The middle will be fine as long as my edges are good. Smooth it out. Okay. And then what I do is I move this out of the way, and see I've got this line of glue, of paste. Okay, every time I say glue, you're going to have to substitute the word paste, because this is paste and it is not the same as glue. But yeah, I can't remember to say paste because I'm so used to saying glue. And then I wipe this off, and then in my last video somebody said, oh my god, you wasted so much time cleaning your mat. Why didn't you just use a piece of wax paper? And I'm thinking, oh my god, there's really not enough wax paper in the universe for me to use a clean piece every time I need to glue something when I can just take a minute to wipe my mat. So do whatever makes you happy and fits your budget. Okay, now I'm going to put my paper not up into the stitching on the spine, but just a little bit away from it. Paste is slow drying, so I can move this around a little bit to position it. I can completely peel it off and reposition it. I have a blob of paste right there. When you're working with Yes Paste, you're going to want to have a damp paper towel handy, because you can use that to just completely wipe away any excess paste. And you can do that while it's wet. You can do that after it dries. That's the difference between glue and paste. Paste will reconstitute after it's dry. You just add water and paste comes back to life. Whereas most glue, you add water and it stays dry because, you know, that's its job. Paste, not so much. That's why paste is really good for pasting down a piece of paper to another piece of paper like this, but it's not really good for layering. It's not good for like a decoupage situation where you glue over and under, because if I put a layer of paste over this, and then I decide I want to glue something else down with Mod Podge. Mod Podge is water-based. It's going to reactivate the paste, and it's going to be a mess, you know. And if I pasted something down and then decided I wanted to paint over it, your water-based paint is going to reactivate your paste. So it is not good for an over-under adhesive situation, but it's awesome for this type thing. Okay, now I turn my page over, I get a clean card, and I smooth out any bubbles or wrinkles. If I pull out any excess paste, I just stick it back over there. Looks good. There's always paste ookies on the back of my page, so I'll take my wet paper towel and wipe off my ookies. There we go. Then I use my heat gun to speed stuff up a little bit. This is still going to need to like dry overnight before it's going to be, you know, really dry. And on some of the pages, I've gone back in and trimmed them to fit. Some I'm just leaving them, you know, because I don't know where I'm going. Let's just see what happens. So not really worried about that just yet. But I do want to make sure that my whole page has glue on it. Especially right here. See how when the book is turned like this, that kind of peels up? Yeah. I'm gonna hold it down a little bit and then heat it and then hold it down some more. There we go. Then I can go in, whoops, that's not good. I can go in with my bone folder. I can't find my kitchen bone folder, so I'm using, this is like the little scoring tool that came with the scoring board thing, which, you know, that's just fine. But I have other bone folders, but, you know, if I put the bedroom bone folder in here, then I'm gonna, you know, go, oh my gosh, where's my bedroom bone folder? Or I could use the garage bone folder, but I need that one in the garage. Or the living room bone folder. I have bone folders all over my house, but they need to stay in the room where they belong or I get really confused. Okay, so that edge is down good. These edges seem to have good contact. Yeah, I got a weird line right there, but I don't care because I'm gonna have a page over here. So this is done. This is still very wet. And like I said, it will be for probably several hours. But by tomorrow, it'll be dry and it'll be in good shape. So that's how I'm gluing all of my background base papers down. Let's do one more. I'll do this one right here. And again, I'm right-handed, so I want this out to the right. And just a nice healthy blob of paste and spread it around. All there is to it. Y'all, this weekend I wanted, or not this weekend, earlier this week, Monday, today's Friday, Monday, I was making dinner. I decided I wanted sweet potato fries. Had a couple sweet potatoes in the bin. They were at the use it or lose it stage. You know what I'm talking about. So I thought, okay, I was making oven fries anyway, so I would just make some sweet potato fries with my regular oven fries. Sliced through my pinky, like nearly took the end of my finger off. I will try not to gross you out too badly with disgusting details, but it was bad. It was really bad. You know how hard raw sweet potatoes are to cut? So I was bearing down with my full weight into that knife, not realizing my little pinky tip was under there. And yeah, it was bad. And it was like right when Jason was fixing to come home. So, you know, I ran it under cold water, and then I grabbed a clean paper towel and was putting pressure on it. And I'm thinking, I just need to hold on till Jason gets home. And, you know, what I saw when I ran it under the water told me that I needed help with it. I needed to go to the ER. So I was trying to hold it together. I was sick to my stomach. I had the black dots in front of my eyes. I thought I'm going to faint and he's going to panic when he gets here. Fortunately, I did not faint or throw up. But he came in and saw me standing there with the paper towel and was like, "What did you do?" And I showed him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we need to go." So we went to this new emergency room place that just opened up right down the street. Super convenient for us. And, you know, was able to get right in. And the doctor looked at it, and he was kind of, you know, he was like on the fence as to whether he should use the super glue or the stitches, and he couldn't get it to quit bleeding. So, you know, he was like, it could probably use stitches, but I think the glue is going to be better because it's like, it won't stop bleeding. So they did a compression dressing on it, you know, wrapped it really tight and left it for 5 minutes. And then as soon as he took the dressing off, it bled. So that didn't work. So they held my pinky, you know, like right here to try to get it to quit bleeding. That didn't work. And it's just, you know, he said pinkies or fingers, hands are like scalps. There's just a lot of little blood vessels, and, you know, it doesn't take much for them to bleed like crazy. So that didn't work. And I was waiting and waiting, and he said, okay, we're gonna have to do something. So the nurse made a tourniquet. She was so proud of herself. She's like, oh, it's a baby tourniquet. And they put the tourniquet around here and cut off my blood supply at least long enough to get the super glue on there. So they kind of super glued the end of my finger back on. And he said, you know, it'll be fine, just it'll wear off in, you know, 5 to 10 days. You know, it's okay to like get it wet when you shower, to like wash your hair, but don't just soak it in the water. And I said, okay, 5 to 10 days, I can do that. Y'all, the super glue cap on the end of my pinky lasted less than 24 hours. Like the next day, the next morning, I get up, it's completely off. It's bleeding profusely again. And I'm just like, well, now what am I supposed to do? So my sister's a nurse, and I sent her a text. She's my text-to-medicine, that's what I call her. Said, what do I do? Do I re-super glue it? She's like, well, don't really think you should super glue it. So I got some of that liquid adhesive at Pharmacy and tried that. Okay, that was ridiculous. That held for maybe 30 minutes. Then I went to Hobby Lobby. I bought a whole other thing of super glue. Because like I have super glue here at home, but you know, I don't know what the tip has touched. And I had a long conversation with the nurses in the ER, and yeah, the super glue that they use on skin is pretty much exactly the same as the super glue you buy at the craft store. The only difference is, you know, it's sterile. It's in a sterile container, but it's the same stuff. So I was like, okay, so it doesn't hurt to super glue stuff. And she goes, well, no, not really. She said, you know, nurses do it all the time at their own houses. The problem that they have is people will super glue their own wounds without cleaning them properly, or they will super glue wounds that should have been stitched. And she gave an example of like a chainsaw wound. And I'm thinking, okay, that was really a weird example. That must be from real life experience. So she said, yeah, you got to be careful with it, but it's the same stuff. So anyway, I can't get my silly pinky to quit bleeding. So I go to Hobby Lobby. I get some super glue. I come home, you know, put enough pressure on it to slow it down enough to get it to quit bleeding, and put the super glue on. And it lasts about another day before it comes off. But fortunately, the active, scary bleeding had died down quite a bit by then. So now it's gonna be weird when it heals. It's going to leave a really interesting scar. It just kind of looks like my pinky is tipping its hat to people. I said I didn't want to gross you out, but I probably just did. Yeah. Well, anyway. So that was my trauma for the week. Trying to save the tip of my pinky finger and dealing with all the pinky meat that I had to look at. And I just don't handle those things very well at all. But made it through, it's fine. And I let it breathe for most of the day. I keep ointment on it so it won't dry out. But I do cover it when I have to be out in public or, you know, for y'all, because it's still rather unsightly. So, oh man, I can't wait for the critical comments I'm going to get on this video about my disgusting injury description. But yeah, it is what it is. Whatever. So there we go. You see how nice and smooth the Yes paste glues down these pages. That one's wet. This one's dry. This one's dry. They dry nice and smooth. So it's just a good option for when you need something to stick down really smooth. Just keep in mind, you know, the little caveats for Yes paste. It can't get wet again. Now it's okay to get these papers, you know, to put like Mod Podge on top of this paper. That's going to be fine. But it can't touch the glue because it will reactivate the glue or the paste. It can't touch the paste. So, yeah, you just have to be careful there. But just to glue down things like this to keep them nice and smooth, this works really well. So there is your tip of the day. That's how I'm doing these pages. And I will come back on another day and we'll do some more gluing. We'll put some stuff together, see how it goes. Until then, the end.